Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to Enigmatica 6 Expert. Now, we're picking back up not too long after the last episode. I wanted to update you guys, because I did have to make a couple changes. When I happened to run some of the tokens that took the twisted saplings, I noticed that the twisted saplings would not grow due to the blocks being on top of these three. So what I ended up doing, simple little fix, is over here I put the redstone link down, and then the redstone dust ran with the redstone pin below the block category detector, and then the dispensers are actually just triggered off of the same redstone system that this timer is running off of. They trigger on the same timing that these corner bits of gold powder would get deposited, and that gets the blocks off the top, gets the timers and the redstone link off the top there. So I do also have all 4 tokens put in. I haven't added the other things as of yet because, once again, they're just not that important. They'll come up, we'll add them, especially ancient saplings. The firework guys, it's not really a rush until like in-game. Though we may start making some of the in-game stuff before in-game, because the way in-game's set up, we could probably start looking towards that before we've necessarily finished out progression across the board. So now today we are going to be continuing with progression. Before we get into that, the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull out the extraction module from this. We're going to pull it out because we don't want to be sending anything over to the centrifuges for a little bit, and instead we're going to let those honeycombs build up just a little bit for us. Now, while that stuff's building up, we are going to turn our attention over to something that's a bit overdue. We're going to grab our runic chalk. We are going to grab our factory dropper. We are going to grab a vacuumulator. We're also going to grab ourselves an item filter. Let's also grab these sediment panes as well. And you can see that I've got gravel getting stockpiled up to that 1,000 mark. Just added it because we're going to be making use of that. Basically, it runs through. I did have to add one additional small thing to our system over here. You can see it's crushing up that gravel right there, but basically there's a chest here with a filter that's just collecting gravel, because technically gravel counts as a washable item, and so it was washing it, turning it into flint and iron nuggets, and then sending it on. Basically just crushing up cobblestone from our stoned bees. But we're going to be making use of some gravel, and technically there is a gravel bee, but I really don't want to waste space on that, I don't believe. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to set up something kind of similar to how we had the occult flame. I'm going to put the factory hopper in, or factory dropper in right there. And then we're going to go ahead and just fill this in with some sediment glass. And we're going to put a vacuumulator in right here. And we are going to have an item filter in this, and this is going to be the allow list. And then what we're going to do, let's get ourselves some spell parchment. Of course, this stuff being reusable, so super handy. Let's go ahead, let's throw it onto there, and let's set up a recipe here, and we're going to say, this will be on the big fortune spell for now. We're going to do just a touch, smelt, and we could throw in just a little bit of AoE into this. Let's go 1-2. So that way you can smelt, or no, just 1, because we're going to be dropping 1 item at a time. Though it is going to be fairly quick. Technically we could go with Pneumaticraft hopper and make it instantaneous dropping. I don't know that it's really going to be necessary. I think this will be sufficient. And that way it doesn't just eat through a ton of source either. And then we'll just go ahead and set that spell. Grab that. So we've got touch smelt AoE. And then we can go ahead with our runic chalk. Put that down right there. I can't access it. Okay. Well, I can access it under the floor, so it's not a big deal. And so now anytime that something lands on this, it will attempt to smelt it. So, in example, sand is not going to be something that we put into this, but if we threw in, well, let's go ahead and configure this real quick. So we've got the drop stack set to 1, drop delay is 1, And we're going to set this to ignore redstone and just continuous. So if we put that in right there, it's going to start dropping that, and you can see that it's going to smelt. Now it is going to need a source of source. So we are going to be sending over a little bit of source here. And I'm fairly certain I'll be able to send this from over here, if not up there. Should be able to do it. But let's grab this and send it to there as well. Okay, so this source jar is going to get supplied. It's going to supply source to our rune, which is going to allow it to smelt things. So there we go. A couple things land on it. You can see it just smelted up a bunch of glass at once. And there we go. And there's a little bit of a cooldown, but it kind of matches the drop speed of this, so it should be fine. Like I said, if you feel like you're going to need faster smelting than that, the hoppers from Pneumaticraft should be a good option. Also, just open crate from Britannia would work just as well. I'm going to stick with the factory dropper for now. And then if we find out later on that we need to bump it up a little bit, we could switch that to open crate. But realistically, I think factory dropper is going to be sufficient for us. So open crates are cheap, so they are an option, a realistic option. But like I said, I think I'm going to be perfectly happy with this. Okay, so now let's grab our pipes. Let's grab ourselves some low crafting modules, and some examples of things that I would really like to smelt are gravel. Let me order a piece of gravel. We're going to set up a recipe. Now, gravel's a little bit special because we do have technically 2 steps there that we could potentially do with the rock wool, for example. I think what I'm going to do is just feed my pipes directly in. Yeah, and then what I'll do is just do a disentangled block elsewhere for additional recipes. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 recipes to this. Go ahead and throw that in, get a piece of slag, and then let me throw it back in and get a piece of rock wool. Now, this probably is not going to be consuming very much source at all, and it shouldn't affect our source generation. We should have plenty. If not, we can speed up our source generations over here. But we're going to tell it that gravel makes rock wool, because we're actually going to be wanting rock wool as well as slag from this, because we're going to want slag for concrete. We're going to want rock wool for a variety of things. The big notable one being connectors. I use a lot of rock wool when I do my XNet stuff for connectors. So we're going to put that, we're going to set that in place. And then what we're going to do is, let's come under the floor. And then all we're going to do is add rock wool to our vacuumulator, and that's it. So basically what's going to happen is it's going to drop gravel. It's going to smelt it into slag, but it can't pick it up. And then it's going to smelt it again into rock wool. Because we already have slag coming in from the basalts. Now, technically, I could use this slag and only do 1 smelting step to get the rock wool, but I think I want to send the gravel over to do that, to make the rock wool, and just keep this slag here, because we're going to be using this for concrete, possibly later this episode, getting that set up. And I want a dedicated source of slag, and then I want gravel, which I'm keeping gravel stock to 1,000. I want that going for the rock wool. Just a couple quick smelting operations, not a big deal. And I think that's the way that I want to handle that. And then, like other stuff, we can just add recipes as they come up. That's the big one that comes to mind right this second, but there will certainly be a lot more recipes. So we'll just go ahead and plug that up. So now we have access to the dropper. Now let me go ahead and order a speed upgrade, and we're going to go ahead and run this back right there. So our stuff will be able to access the vacuumulator, and then we'll just put a dud filter into this one as well. And we'll say that you can accept assembly halos. Okay, and we'll just drop that right into there, and we should be all set. We can go ahead and replace the floor in this room. Which, if you're wondering what this room is going to be long term, this is actually going to be a stocking room for additional stocking as we move on later into the pack. But okay, now let's take a look over at our honeycomb blocks. At this point, we've got smelting in place. We'll add additional recipes as they come up. But we actually have right over here, I have set up what's going to be another apiary. And this one is a tier 3. And we are going to be doing all 9 of our alloy bees in it. It kind of works out because there's 9 alloy bees and there's space for 9 bees within an apiary. So what we've got right here are the 9 bees that we're going to be running in that. And this is actually going to help us out a ton once we get all these bred, because this is going to mean that whenever it comes to crafting things, we don't have the step of actually making the alloys. Something I've kind of put off for a little bit, but I think it is time for us to get these bees going. So if we take a look at the brass bee, we're going to be looking at the filled bee jar. We can actually do these through the induction smelter, and it's going to be zinc honeycomb, 3 copper, and empty bee jar. So we'll go ahead and grab ourselves a bit of bee jars here. And let's get copper. I don't have enough yet of those. I may have to give this just a little bit longer for some of these, I think. Because I know, like, a copper is going to get used. Yeah, let me give this just a little bit here. I've got some other stuff to do around here. And maybe I'll think of some other smelting. Actually, I just thought of another smelting recipe that we need to add. Sunmetal blend. Because we need to be able to make this sunmetal bricks. Because they come up in a few things. Namely, the infused sunmetal. But let's go ahead and add a recipe here and say sunmetal. There you go. That's how you make that. And add it to the item filter. And let me go ahead and grab some flux linkage amplifiers and a hardened integral components, a batch of those. We're going to go ahead and throw these into here. This is an induction smelter that we made a bit back, kind of just for personal use. It was mainly for these. So we're going to go ahead now. I'm actually going to be breeding, or just making these. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and just make the bees that we're going to run, and then I'll make breeding pairs, like excess breeding pairs, maybe. Even though it's really not that important, to be honest, that we make, because they're so easy to make. Yeah, I probably won't even worry about making breeding pairs. Let's go ahead and throw that into there. That's going to get us our brass bee. Bronze. And then we're going to have Constantine. As you can see, these are super easy. And for the steel bee, we're going to need a block of coal coke. So let me go ahead and just grab that. This will be the last one that we've got that needs a jar. And then we have Inderium, Lumium, and Signalum, which none of these take jars. Okay, so we'll get our Signalum bee. There is our Lumium bee. And then the Inderium bee, which is 2 ender, a diamond, and 3 lead. And I do have some ender honeycombs. I ran an ender bee for just a very brief amount of time just to get 6 of the honeycomb blocks there. And there is our Inderium bee. Okay. And then, of course, all we got to do is throw these in there. Now, I believe all of these just take flowers. I'm going to double check. But I believe all the alloy bees only require flowers. Oh, it looks like the Inderium one doesn't have the ender effect, so we don't have to worry about that either. Okay, so we'll just throw that into there. And then we get to import all 9 of our bees. And right now, I'm going to pull the extraction module out. I don't want to extract from that for the time being. And that way I can get the honeycomb blocks and get those slotted in. But let's go ahead and just unlock all of those. And then at this point, we can go ahead and turn the extraction back on over here, thus extracting back to the centrifuge. So that's going to be running again. Perfect. And then looks like our bees are starting to come out. And of course, after these run for a little bit and build up honeycomb, I'm not going to set it up initially because we won't have enough honeycomb blocks to, or we won't have enough of these resources to actually produce what we're going to be wanting from it. And I don't want my system requesting things that it doesn't have if we don't need to. But of course, we're going to be sending it over to here, and we're going to be producing the alloys and then keeping them stocked like we did with all these metals that are over here, or at least most of these metals. You can see I've got Invar and Brass, but there's none in there right now. Osmium I haven't put in yet. Should probably put that in. Yeah, actually, let me go ahead and put a few things in. And I think just to finish out this stocker that keeps, 1,000 of these various different things, we're a little bit over 1,000 in most cases. We have 4 slots remaining, and I think I'm going to do clay so that we do have clay balls. Also fluorite, osmium, and coal, because I don't currently have those in at the moment. So clay makes 3 clay balls. Fluorite makes 6 fluorite. Osmium makes osmium. Coal makes coal. We'll just add those in. That way we make sure that this stuff stays stocked. And then this is ran for just a second. We can go ahead and grab all of this. And it is worth noting that whenever this stuff gets ran, it makes the dust version. So this will make Enderium dust, and this will make diamond dust. The Signalum, for example, will make straight redstone and Signalum dust. The Lumium will make Lumium and glowstone. Bronze will do some tin nuggets, which already have a slot, and bronze dust, and so on. Some of that stuff, like diamond dust, I'm probably just going to slot diamond dust in, because I've already got a diamond bee producing diamond. Yeah, we can always use the, so we can use the diamond dust here, and throw it into the metallurgic infusers, and use that for mechanism. And as far as the alloys, since they do produce the dust and they don't produce chunks, these are going to go over to the smelting system that we set up today and just get immediately smelted. Not immediately, but for like stocking purposes. That's how it's going to be ran, is over there and get smelted up. So we're going to go ahead and slot in these. And you'll notice that my combs, they do not have void upgrades. I just void completely on this stuff and not on the combs themselves. So, but I am going to order a few more void upgrades, because we'll probably need them on the outputs, because I didn't put voids in these. So, and you can see clay shooting up. We have 531 at the moment. It's going to stock that until we hit 1,000. So our alloy bees are up and going. I'm going to go ahead and throw the extraction upgrade into this, and then I'll have to keep an eye on my centrifuge for a minute, just until we get all the stuff slotted in. I'll just check it periodically, you know. Which it looks like it's already gotten Signalum, Enderium, Electrum. That's good. Go ahead and get those slotted in. And then once we get enough of this stuff to start actually running it this way, which basically I'm just going to let it fill up the 8 stacks, and then I'll start running it this way. I'll probably make some storage upgrades for over here so we have a bit more of that stuff on hand. But once we get enough of that, then I'm going to go through and remove the alloy recipes from these, you know. And I actually have enough induction smelters over here for every recipe that's not included within bees and other stuff to have its own induction smelter. So, you know, that's why we have the number of induction smelters over here that we do have. Now let's go ahead and drop in the remaining void upgrades. I'm just going to go ahead and put those in there. I'll need to make 4 more to fill the rest of this out. But I know some of this will be combs, and I may end up needing a little bit more space on this wall. We'll see. Okay, so that's in place. Actually, for the other 3 apiaries, I may just end up duplicating some bees. Maybe, if stuff comes up that we're running a lot of. I don't know. A single bee is so powerful, especially once we move on to tier 4 apiaries, which will double our output. But anyways, let's go ahead and turn our attention to a system that we have been planning on getting in place for some time. If we take a look at the PCB, we're going to need an iron bee, we're going to need a bucket of lubricant. That stuff's really, really easy. And we're also going to need 6 air canisters. Let's go ahead and order those. And then I'm going to need a cardboard box, a compressed iron helmet, which does take some sequence assembly. Okay, now for the sequence assembly, for making armor and stuff, unless something comes up that we need consistently, I'm not really setting this up for like constant running or anything. I think what we're going to do, let me grab these. Let me go ahead and get a deployer. We've got to get glycerol being produced. We're actually going to, kind of in this round of automation stuff, we're going to be automating some glycerol, but my crafting is a little slow at the moment for Pneumaticraft. Okay, so let's grab our deployer, and we're going to start using this one if we need to make like some of this weird armor that takes sequence assembly. I don't foresee, actually I need a shaft too. But I don't foresee much need in automating it unless something comes up. Because, you know, it's different recipes for different things and different metals for different things. So it's probably something that we'll just kind of want to occasionally do. Now we do have one piston right here. What I'm going to do, I mean, I could add 3 more pistons, but I think I'm just going to let it cycle 3 times and not add another piston. It'll basically place an iron, cycle 3 times, or finish that cycle, and then cycle 2 more times, and place another iron, cycle, you know, and basically it's going to take it, you know, quite a few cycles, but that's okay. I'm not that terribly concerned about it. Let's go ahead and put the compressed iron into there. Just set that onto the belt. I probably need to set like a manual toggle for this, I think. I think that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's go ahead, break this off, break this off. We're going to put an encased chain drive there and there. And actually I'm going to want a couple more encased chain drives. I think I'm going to bring it up one more. So encased chain drive there. This is going to go out into a clutch, and then we're going to have our lever on this clutch. Normally it'll be on, and then we'll just do our belt down right there. But then if we want to manually run this, like with the case of the hazmat suit, we can just release that, and it can run around. Now as soon as it hits this spot, it's going to trigger that redstone, and then we can actually shut that lever off and just let it run. There we go. And our normal recipes will still work as expected as well. So, and let me go ahead and drag that and put it in, because we want this to pull out the pneumatic helmet whenever it gets done. So it'll take a little bit for it to finish, but we can let that run for just a moment because I've got some other stuff I've got to craft up anyways. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to want for this is going to be a fluid collection funnel. We'll go ahead and get all that stuff ordered. To make one of those, I think for right now we're going to go with one. Technically we could have a lot bigger setup, but I think using one of these and the setup that I have planned for it, I think it's going to be more than enough. And then while that stuff's getting ordered, let's go ahead and get ourselves also a fluid outlet. So we'll go ahead and order that. And then let's pop up real quick. Alright, and then we're going to take ourselves a pumpkin. Let me get a pipe and a crafting module. And we're going to set up a quick crafting recipe here. Start using some of this stuff that our sylph is bringing in. We're going to teach it a recipe and say that if you take pumpkins, you can get pumpkin seeds. And then we'll just go ahead and do that. And that's going to get us some pumpkin seeds crafted up. There we go. And then we're going to start sending these down to our Enigmatica area. Technically we could do other crops, but I think pumpkins should be sufficient in all honesty. So let's go ahead. I want to start stocking pumpkin seeds. This is keeping what? A half stack? Should be fine. So start keeping 32 pumpkin seeds in this as well. And then we set up, a bit back whenever we were setting up all of our thermopneumatic processing plants, we do have one here that does veggie oil. I'm going to switch from quinoa seeds at this point to pumpkin seeds. And that way we can start producing that vegetable oil. And it was this one here that was producing, we've got 10,950 right now. Now for our fluid tanks, were any of these vegetable oil? I don't think so. I think it was just etching acid, LPG oil, plastic, memory essence, lubricant. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because so I was planning on sending it. I couldn't remember. I was planning on sending it from here over. Why did I send coal in? It must have been an accident. Probably when I didn't shut off item transfer. It's not supposed to have coal. Or actually, I think I just did it just a second ago. So it's going to start sending the pumpkin seeds over. Each one of these is, of course, going to make us 50 vegetable oil. This will steadily start running. We will probably end up putting some speed upgrades. Once we get our glycerol set up, we'll probably put some speed upgrades into that if we find that we need it. But this should be sending over our pumpkins and crafting those. Yeah, we're down by 11 pumpkins right now. Perfect. Okay, let me go grab this stuff. Okay, so let's take our compressed iron helmet. Let's box it up. And then let's go ahead and throw that into there, and that way our pneumatic system, our assembly system, can get that crafted up. And then at this point I need to set up this area. Let me get the stuff to actually lay this out real quick. And I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, now let's pop out. We're actually going to go out and get ourselves 4 buckets of oil. This will be the last time that we manually go out to get oil. I did go ahead and I made 3 more of the small collection funnels. And let's see. It looks like we got some oil right up here. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's going to be enough, though. Oh. Yeah, we got enough. Okay, great. Alright, let's pop down back into here. And let's head on over. And what we're going to do is, let's grab our connectors and our cables. And we're going to be plugging this up into our XNet system over here, because of course it doesn't really matter how many fluids we have on this. It's all filtered, so it doesn't really matter too much. So we're going to have it on our Enigmatica fluid network, and we're going to do a connector setting. Well, a connector setting here. And we'll go ahead and run that back. We're going to have a connector setting here. We'll run that back. Connector here. Connector here. And then we're going to come up to right here. And we're going to put in a connector right there as well. No, I'm sorry. Down by 1. Connector there. And then right here we're going to have our fluid outlet. And then we're going to have collection funnels here, 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 and here. Now, of course, we've covered fluid collection funnels before, but basically these are going to be able to collect fluids above them. But we're actually going to filter them. Now, normally you can't filter them, but with XNet, we can easily filter these. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this, say, on channel 7. Let's shut off fluid transfer for just a moment. And we're going to say that you can extract from this. And we're going to say keep this amount in fluid tank. We're going to say 1. Okay, so it's going to keep 1 millibucket of the fluid inside of there. And then we're just going to copy this, paste it over like that. Now, before we turn on the extraction for that, let's go ahead. Let me actually set up the ethereal glass. I'll just do that for right now. Well, it doesn't really matter. I can go ahead and put all of it in. It doesn't hurt anything. Because we can freely move through this, but nothing else can. So, and then we're going to go ahead and put some oil on top of that. And you can see that it just got collected. Now, if we take a look, we've got a bucket in there. And then let's go ahead and do that for the other 3, because basically we're just going to use these to set up our filters. Well, actually, let's do it with 3 of them, but let's keep 1 bucket for just 1 moment here. Okay. Well, actually, you know, because we don't really need to set up a filter. This can extract. I guess I should have checked to see which line I was inserting into the oil line. Yeah, actually, the oil out is on channel 8, so that was perfect. Okay, so what we're going to do is on channel 7, let's find the oil in right here. Channel 7, we're going to go ahead and create this, and we're going to say that you can insert oil into there. And then at this point, we should be able to turn on channel 7. I think it's good to go. So if we turn this on, it should extract the oil from this, but you can see it left 1 millibucket in this, which basically means that it's now filtered to only accept crude oil because it can't accept other fluids that aren't part of its internal storage, because it can't handle more than 1 fluid. So now let's just add our last oil in there, and that should get extracted, and there we go. And that's probably going over here, I imagine, to make like LPG or something. Yeah, it went in here and it's starting to produce these. Okay, perfect. Alright, so now what we're going to do is let's grab ourselves a bucket of our vegetable oil that we've been producing. And we're going to go ahead and set up another fluid to this. This is the, let's find it here, the veggie oil line. Let's go ahead on channel 7 again. That's fine. Let's go ahead and turn this off for just a moment. And we're going to say that you can extract. And then we're going to come up to our fluid outlet. And we're going to say that you can insert. It's going to be our veggie oil. And then let me go ahead and just dump this bucket into there. Just to get that veggie oil placed down. And then we can turn this back on. So what we should see happen here in just a moment is the fluid outlet should start getting that veggie oil. Oh, which actually I need to rotate it. Opposite side, fluid input. There we go. So that's going to start placing out, whoops. That's going to start placing out our vegetable oil around in here. Now bear in mind that these fluid collectors, technically if like oil gets made here and it's got vegetable oil on top of it, the oil's not going to be flowing onto it. And it will take it a second to collect it, but then whenever it does collect it, it's going to collect a fair amount of it. So that should be good. Now let's go ahead, let's take a look at beehives. We're actually going to be making ourselves, but let's go ahead and order ourselves a beehive. What's it take for the tier 2, the tier 3, the tier 4? Okay. And then we can just upgrade this. There we go. And we now have a tier 4, because basically I want the ability to, if we want to, put up to 16 pneumatic bees in here. And of course, apiaries, they only allow one of the same type of bee. You know, you can't have duplicate bee types per apiary. So tier 4, it's going to be the maximum that we can possibly have of a single type of bee. Up to 16 PCBs can go into this. So, and this is kicking away, working on making us our vegetable oil. It's not super fast. Once again, we need to get glycerol to make it a bit faster. So, but that's okay. We're going to have a passive source of oil, and a little bit of oil goes a really long way. So we'll be able to fill back up on plastic, on LPG, on all that good stuff from this. Okay, so now what we need to do, I need to get the iron bees bred up. Of course, PCBs, they can produce empty PCBs, and they can produce etching acid. But this can produce compressed iron, can produce empty PCBs, and can produce etching acid. And then I think beyond that, I think it's just the iron bee, the bucket of lubricant, and the pneumatic helmet. So I'll grab a bucket of that. Now, in addition, we are going to need a block of plastic. Because this is going to serve basically as the PCB's flour. Now, if you're setting this up in an apiary, bear in mind that these are damaging blocks, the top of them. So if mobs touch the top of it, they will take damage. So if they're in your apiary, make sure you're putting them on the ceiling or somewhere that bees can't get on top of. Otherwise, it'll kill your bees. But to produce these are going to be Pneumaticraft plastic sheets and some dye. Okay. So I'll just order a set of these. I'm going to do yellow, I think. And I think I'm going to put mine... Yeah, I might just put them all along this wall. Oh yeah, and I got to fill in this real quick. Because otherwise my bees are going to be going all over the place. And let's go ahead and throw in our iron bee, our bucket of lubricant, and our pneumatic helmet. And there goes our last item. Boom. Actually won't let me pull that from the crafting terminal. How strange. But okay, we can go ahead and put in our bee. Everything looks good. We'll go ahead and put our bee out right there. And what's going to happen is the bee is going to fly over once it notices it. And of course, once it has pollen on its legs and it's dropping that pollen, it's going to convert buckets of vegetable oil into crude oil. Now, right now, until we speed up vegetable oil and we get more PCBs in here, it's not going to be super fast, but this system is easily scaled out, and it just means we don't have to worry about oil. You know, there's other ways to go about oil, but this is the method that we're going to use, And plus that way we get to actually use some pollen mutations, like in-world pollen mutations, in our bee stuff. And it's honestly more of one of the interesting methods for bees, or things that we can do with the bees, than just making honeycombs. Honestly, the bees would have been more interesting, I think, if it was purely item mutation, block mutation for the bees, and there wasn't much in the way of like honeycomb produce. I think that would be kind of cool. I'm assuming that it can harvest off the bottom. If not, we may have to shift it down by a block, but if so, that's fine too. I'm going to bring it down by a block and we'll see. Which, if so, I may break apart some of this and shift this over, because otherwise these aren't really going to probably ever get mutated. There we go. It's got pollen. You can see oil getting produced, just one that time. Yeah, so it's not going to get collected right now because the fluid collection funnel is right here. But it's, and I don't think, yeah, there's not a block right there at present. And this is where basically just scaling out our number of bees over here. Now, granted, if you wanted an even better setup, I wanted it to fit into this big area, and I'm planning on using a number of bees. But probably the most efficient method, if you're just after efficiency, you know, like I said, I usually, I don't prioritize necessarily efficiency and instead just have fun with things, but probably just having blocks along this, and then having a fluid collection funnel in the middle, and then 3 spots where the vegetable oil can get placed out, and then the outlet there, you know, basically something like totally blocked in, and just like a shaft like this, and have your plastic block right over here, and then your hive setting here, and then your fluid collection funnel there in the middle. That would probably be the most efficient, but this method, once we have a bunch of bees in here, you know, they may not be transforming the entire room, but they'll at least transform the main blocks in order, you know, we'll be getting oil in. It's not really a concern. But a lot of this probably won't really get used realistically, because they're probably going to go from here to a certain block, pollinate that, and then they'll go back, and they're probably just going to hit, like, they probably won't hit any of this, and they also probably won't hit this edge here. Though I may expand out the construction bricks and push them back maybe. So I'll do a little rearranging with this, and I think we're going to actually harvest off of these, in fact, because we're going to have the setup in place, and we're going to end up scaling this out, I think, to probably have quite a few bees in it. So we'll do that. And then we'll set up a vacuumulator. This is going to have a filter in it. And for right now, I'm just going to put scraper in there. It's going to take our bee a minute to get enough honey in here for us to set up the rest of this. But yeah, we got 1 PCB honeycomb. Looks like it's looking for them since I moved them. It can't find its flower. That's fine. But once this area is filled out, it should get at least like 3 or 4 oil. Assuming that there's enough vegetable oil in there, it should get 3 or 4 oil every time it goes through. And then once it actually starts collecting, this is actually going to fill up really, really fast. Just takes it a minute to set up. And then once we have, like, say, 8 PCBs, because they're actually really cheap to make. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and start getting this stuff together. And I think I'll have to do just a little bit of room adjustment here, just to get my PCB really, really happy. Because he's kind of being a little bit wonky there. It's taking him a little bit to detect his flowers, but that's fine. I think he's got them now. I think he's like, hey, that's mine. Yeah, you can see he's transforming quite a bit of oil there, because there is going to be a lot of variation as far as the way that they move. So that'll be fine. We'll go ahead and get that going, get our pneumatic helmets, and I'm going to get the rest of these bees crafted up, then we'll finish this up. Alright, and I've got some PCBs running. I'm going to keep these as breeding ones, but I'm actually going to go ahead and go straight for the full 16, I think, of these. So I'll give them a little bit to breed, and then we'll add those in. But for now, we can go ahead and add these in. And let's see, we've got two PCB honeycombs right now. As you can see, one bee, it's just not very fast. He's in there right now making our third one, but a single bee is just not that fast. But once we have 16 bees, it's going to be 16 honeycombs per operation. Technically going to be a little bit faster on PCBs than if we had one PCB in a tier 3 tier 3 apiary. So we will be crafting it into blocks and then sending it on, I think. Yeah, you can see this one made a bit more oil, but we actually need the oil over there. And it's funny because kind of wherever you place the bee down, it kind of locks it into that being its flower. So yeah, and actually it just made some oil, it looks like. Did this just get oil? It did. So you can see this just jumped up in oil, and it's still kind of jumping up. So you can see that whenever it did get enough converted over so that it could basically link them together, the fluid collection funnels could basically get a link together of oil, it actually absorbed a bunch, because this had emptied out, and so it jumped up like 8 buckets or 7 buckets or something like that, just all at once. And it'll get progressively faster. Right now, I think the limiting factor, of course, is going to be the vegetable oil. That's going to be the limiting factor for this, but long term, maybe not such a big deal once we have the glycerol in place, so that we can start adding speed upgrades to speed that up. Because right now it's a little bit slow, and this is actually going to be our 8th bee, and that's actually the last one that's coming from the pressure chamber method. Because the rest of them I'm just breeding up. I was doing the pressure chamber method just because that way I've got that going and the breeding going, and go ahead and get our bees kind of jump started. But like I said, we're going to go straight for 16 bees, I think. I could probably change this over to a block, realistically, because they're not going to hit this. They teleport in as soon as they get to this area, and it's basically just more vegetable oil space that we don't necessarily have to use. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a timer. And this timer, 1 second on, 1 second off, that's fine. Okay, so it's starting to pump out the PCB honeycombs at this point. It takes 20 of them to start producing those. And we're going to go ahead and set up the item filter and just say that you only accept the PCB honeycombs. And let me go ahead and eat one too. And then I want to go ahead and connect up this vacuumulator to the XNet system. Oh wow, but our LPG has shot up since we started doing this. And then probably plastic will start shooting up soon after that. Am I not sending that? Let me see. Oh yeah, I think I shut it off whenever I was messing with it and never plugged it back up. So I do need to do that. Yeah, there we go. Now our plastic's going to start going up, and LPG is going to start going into here and running, making us our plastic. Awesome. Okay, yeah, you can see that this just triggered. We've got a little over a bucket in there. It was more like 2 buckets. And you can see that this just filled out. So it kind of takes it a second to get the whole area built out, but whenever it does harvest, it's a huge harvest. Whenever it gets a good proper harvest off. You can see I've got the full 16 bees out right now. And they are running rampant. But yeah, I mean, it went off, and I mean, that's just boom, that's a ton of oil. And then, of course, eventually this stuff's going to get backed up. Oil's going to shoot up, and we're going to have loads of that backed up. And the vegetable oil is actually going to be getting split. Once we get our glycerol system in place, we'll be splitting some of that vegetable oil off for glycerol production. I mean, that's another thing that's going to end up just backing up, because I only need so much of it, and once we get it in place, we're going to make use of it pretty quickly. But, yeah. We've got 17 buckets of oil. It was, like I said, I think it was more like 19 buckets or something like that whenever it first harvested. It was a bunch. So I was just kind of waiting for that trigger to go off. I was sitting over here editing some footage. Okay, now at this point, let's go ahead. We're going to set ourselves up. We're going to do a connector right here. And we're going to put in a formulaic assemblycator right here. Drop that in. Let's go ahead and say input through the bottom, or actually input-output through the bottom. And let's go ahead and set up a recipe. That's going to be the recipe. Stock control, auto mode. And then what I want to do is, I think all the inserts on channel 1 are filtered. They are. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to say that you can insert, it's going to be PCB honeycombs. And then we're going to come over to the vacuumulator right here and say that you can extract stack 20 is fine. And we should say PCB honeycombs coming into here. And then let's go ahead and tell it that the formulaic, you can also send power to that as well. And that way it can start running and making us our PCB honeycombs. Let me grab one of these. Alright, so what we're going to do, we're going to try something. It's going to be a little bit weird, but we're going to try it. Let's go ahead and break this off. Let's put our entangled block in, and let's put a connector right there. I'm kind of curious to see if this works, and if it does, this is going to be super handy for us. It will mean that we won't be storing this honeycomb into here, which is fine. We don't actually need to store it. But what if we did this block? And we set this up here. And then let's tell it that, let's see, craft extract, that's channel 2. That's the one that's filtered. Let's go ahead and say that you can insert, it's going to be the PCB honeycomb blocks. And we're going to say that I think all the rest of this is filtered. Yeah, it's all filtered on insert. Perfect. Let's say that you can extract honeycomb blocks from the formulaic. And we'll go ahead and turn that on. And so what we should see happen is, if there's space in this, yes, PCB honeycomb block has come in. Now, let's go ahead. The only thing is we're going to have to maybe void the etching acid at a certain point, because we will end up having more of that coming in than I'll be able to use realistically. So, okay, and it did just get some etching acid. Oh, but this is the blacklist. Let me drag that in. I just wasted that etching acid. That's okay. Oh, yeah, it did a big harvest. We got 17.5 buckets, and we got a full 16 over here. So this probably, once this runs for a little bit, we're going to back up on oil. You can also see that LPG is just about to back up, and molten plastic doesn't have much to go before it backs up as well. So, and this is probably using up a little bit of LPG just to keep the temperature topped off, but it's not going to be using much. Okay, let me just order a bucket of etching acid. I think this will be quicker, so I can go ahead and set up the filters. Okay, I got our etching acid bucket. Let's go ahead to, let's see, that's etching acid out, which we probably, realistically, we won't be sending this anywhere. Well, yeah, we will, because we'll be sending it to a fluid system for buckets. Let's go ahead and create an insert line on 7 and say that you can send in etching acid. And then let's go ahead to the entangled block here. And on 7, we're going to say that you can extract etching acid. We're going to go ahead and filter that, because there's going to be a lot of fluids in that. We only want to bother with etching acid. Don't even worry about anything else. And then if there's any in that, we should get it, but it doesn't look like there is. I think there was for a second and it got voided because I forgot I had a blacklist void, not a whitelist void. Okay, so the etching acid will get there, sent there. I will end up setting up another fluid encapsulator. Basically just like we have the plastic bucket, which actually, no, now that I think about it, the buckets of plastic, we were only using that for making etching acid, correct? Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll just change our etching acid one. Once that builds up a little bit, I'll change our etching acid one, or our plastic one, over to do etching acid buckets instead of plastic buckets. So that way we can just go ahead and cut out this whole middle part, because we don't actually have need of that anymore. So that'll get converted over, and then I think it's night right now. So the levels will drop at night because they don't come out of their hive at night. So, which is fine because it gives our vegetable oil time to build up. But this should be able to pump out, and then, like I said, I'll just switch that plastic encapsulator over to handle the etching acid. And I will be setting up a fluid trash can for it once the amount in that starts to build up. Actually, I'll probably go ahead and do it. Let's bust a hole out here. Let's do a connector here, and our fluid trash can sitting here. For the fluid trash can, we're going to turn that off. We're going to say that you can insert, it's going to be specifically etching acid. That's the only thing that we're going to have. We're going to say max insertion is 1,000 here. Priority is 0, but we're also going to say you're enabled on like orange, let's say. And then let's go ahead and set up, it'll need to be on the etching acid in bucket, because etching acid out bucket's going to fill up the fastest. We're going to set up a logic line. Fluid is greater than, or actually we'll just say equal to, they store 32,000, or yeah, 32 buckets. So if etching acid, the fluid in it is equal to 32,000, then you can emit on the channel orange. And then at that point, it would be able to send the etching acid to the trash can. So that should be fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and change the, I've still got to empty out the fluid encapsulator, but I can go ahead and change this up. Buckets, you can insert empty buckets, and then you can extract the etching acid buckets. And then you're going to be feeding in etching acid buckets. And this is on channel 8. And so etching acid out needs to be on channel 8. Actually, we got some etching acid. You can see we got 2.3 buckets. That's what it produces every time that it succeeds. It's like 2.3 or 2.25 or something like that. I can't recall, but, and then I just need to empty this out and then we'll be all set. Let me go ahead. I guess I'm going to turn this into plastic sheets real quick. Etching acid comes in. Perfect. And then I can just change the recipes here. So this is how to make that, but now we're going to teach you that your actual recipe is that. And then the etching acid recipe, we can go ahead and just remove the, I'm going to leave that in there because I'll end up needing it before too long, but that's how you make buckets of etching acid now. You send them here, and then we should have enough, probably enough etching acid in there by the time that I start making that. But we should be good. Looks like we're producing more oil. Man, nightfall passed naturally, and we still have that filled up. That's good. It's very, very good. Because this is going to trigger here very, very soon and produce a lot of oil again. So, yeah, we should be setting really good. It's kind of a slow increase, but you can also see that LPG and plastic is backed up. So what's going to happen now is LPG is going to fill up, and then all of these are going to kind of back up. And then these are going to back up, and then the oil is going to back up. And then if the oil is not already backed up by then it's going to back up there. And then this system is basically just going to be PCBs running. And then keeping that oil stockpiled as needed. They're probably going to end up with a oil lake field. So I think the only places that they're not consistently hitting is these three right here. They seem to be getting these and all of this pretty regularly. And then, of course, we will end up getting some compressed iron and some PCBs coming from this, empty PCBs. So after this runs for a little bit, we should be sitting pretty good. Realistically, because the chances are low, and because it does take them a little bit of time to actually produce this stuff, I should probably just go ahead and order an empty PCB and a compressed iron ingot as well. And we'll go ahead and add those in there. Now redstone, I saw redstone was in here. This actually does not have a place to go, but now it does. So there we go. Hooray! So now we have compressed iron, empty PCBs, all of our alloys coming in. We got smithing automated, and we have oil automated. And etching acid buckets should get crafted a little bit faster now, and not take the extra items. You know, they'll just take the etching acid. So it'll take it a little bit to build up, but shouldn't be too bad. Anyways, I know it's about wrapping up point 4 this episode, so we're going to end this one out here. Next episode, we do have another kind of like batch of miscellaneous little automation like we've been doing the last couple episodes, or the last few episodes, and then we will be moving towards 2 big projects. One will be Botania, mana, and just automation in general. And the other one will be our other source generation, as well as a few other things that we're going to need. And then after that point, we are going to be unlocking, basically doing the engineer school stuff. After that, we'll spend, like an episode setting that up. It's actually pretty easy, as long as you have the groundwork in place, like we've been working on the groundwork in place to make it easy. It's not going to be that difficult for us. And then after that, we'll be doing a little bit of progression, and then we'll start turning our attention towards some of the late game tech, late game magic, and some big multi-blocks and stuff at that point. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already to stay updated with when new videos come out, and I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe. I'll see you guys then. Okay, it's basically the following Minecraft day after we cut, and I just wanted to show you it got another big harvest. We got 16 buckets in here, and we got well, it was 15, I think it was 16 buckets in here as well. So we got about 32 buckets, just boom boom boom, pretty much, sort of like back-to-back sort of harvest, because it kind of, all the bees came out and they were changing it over real quick, and it just kept harvesting. So it's working extremely well. I'm happy.